have you ever heard of the Cecil Hotel? Not even specifically this case, but the Cecil Hotel in LA.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of stuff that's actually happened there, right? Like it's like really pretty sketchy and like comes up every once in a while when something bad happens, I think, right?
Yeah, and it's sketchy now. Well, I actually now I think they have converted it into like everything else in Los Angeles. They're converting to apartments and whatever else. But um, I did just a little backstory research on this place because I've always known about it. And when I lived there, and for the past many years, it's like Skid Row is right around it. It's not a good place, hasn't been a good place for a long time, but it was built in 1924 at a cost of just over $1 million, which that's a tremendous amount of money in 1924 for a hotel. And it was really considered a glamorous destination until the Great Depression hit in 1929, at which time then the hotel suffered like probably everything else in the country, and eventually began to offer, cheap rooms and, dare I say, hourly rates. I don't know if that was a thing at that time, but same vibe, right? And they shifted towards long-term rentals as opposed to just like a hotel you'd stay at for a night or two. So the clientele, pretty dramatically shifts down and down and down. But to your point of this place that's been in the news for a long time, had notable guests like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, who would actually return to that hotel after committing his crimes. That was sort of like his base that he would come back to and hide out. Jack Unterweger, an Austrian serial killer, reportedly killed 3 women during his stay in Los Angeles. He stayed there, and there's a bunch of others too, I think.
I hear they give you a 10% discount if you bring either a weapon or you can prove somehow you're a serial killer.
Maybe. But there's also stories that place is like synonymous with hauntings and haunted, just people seeing ghosts and stories, and whether it's an urban legend or not, I don't know, but that's always sort of followed the Cecil, is that it's haunted. So when this case about Elisa Lam broke in 2013, that is probably one of the reasons why this took off in the way that it did, because of the connection to all these like things at the Cecil Hotel, through history. In January of 2013, Elisa Lam began a solo trip along the coast of California, which included a stay at the Cecil Hotel. Lam was a 21-year-old student at the University of British Columbia in Canada and had initially made a reservation at the Cecil for a shared room, but due to complaints about her unusual behavior, she was then moved to a private room shortly after her arrival. So I couldn't really find anything that was like, what was she doing? What was she doing that was so weird? The statement that I saw in numerous places just had, quote, unusual behavior. So
Interesting to like show up and be booked to share a room with someone, like a total stranger. Anyway, that's kind of unusual, right?
Yeah, but I don't want to say hostile. Like, it's not a hostel.
Maybe
At
for
that
us
time.
in the States, it's unusual. Like it's
Yeah.
less so in Europe, but you're right, like youth hostels and things like that.
Yeah.
But in Los Angeles, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, very. If I would not share a room probably with a stranger in LA, just because, I don't know. Lam was last seen, so she gets moved into her own room. She's last seen on January 31st, 2013. And her parents, who had been in regular contact with her, grew concerned when they failed to hear from her and subsequently reported her missing. Her wallet and ID were found in her room, and investigators soon began to review security footage from the Cecil Hotel, leading to the discovery of this now infamous video that I was kind of talking about earlier, of her in the hotel's elevator. If you we'll talk about it. But if you haven't, those of you that are listening or watching, if you haven't seen this, just type in Elisa Lam elevator. There's nothing gory or anything like that, but it's so creepy and unusual and
And
sad.
we'll pull the footage and put it into the YouTube
Yeah,
version, and
yeah,
you'll be able to see that too.
yeah. So the video, these investigators see this. They release it to the public on February 13th, basically trying to figure out, because they had no leads other than this video, and they're just trying to say, hey, have you seen her? Did you have any contact with her? Did you see her entering or going in or out of an elevator with somebody else? No clue what to do. So they put this video out there to the public, and that's really when it just takes off. In the video, you see her enter the elevator and immediately squat down and press several of the buttons, for different floors. And then she stands sort of like in the corner and just stands almost perfectly still. And that goes on for a little while. And then she like creeps up to the doors of the elevator, which are open. They're just like, even though she had pressed all these buttons, I don't know why the doors didn't close. She just like creeps up and sort of like she's going to poke her head out, and she almost like jumps out like she's trying to surprise someone that's outside of it's so bizarre. But you can't see anybody there. She then, after she does that, she goes back into the elevator and stands flat up against the interior wall of the elevator, and then steps into the corner, like right next to where the buttons are. So you're basically inside of the door, and just like stands as, straight and small as she can in the corner. It's just, I don't know how else to describe it. It's bizarre.
It's very unnatural.
It's very, very unnatural. Yeah.
Yeah.
She appears to be hiding from somebody is what the point I'm trying to make. She appears to be nervous or scared. And she does this again, like 2 or 3 times, like where she kind of like creeps out, looking out through the doors into the hallway. You don't see anybody else. You don't see any shadows. There's no audio, so you can't hear anything. And then she walks out into the hallway, sort of off camera, and stands there for, is out there for a while. Re-enters the elevator again, presses all the buttons again, acting like she's, and we'll show this in the video too, but she's at one point acts like she's talking to somebody or pleading with somebody, twisting, her hands are twisting and a lot of movement with her hands. It's just really, really bizarre. Then she walks away, I guess, or she walks outside out of camera view, and the elevator doors close and open and close and open, close several times, but there's no one there, whether she's pressing the buttons outside or what. The whole video only lasts 4 minutes, but it's unnerving, right?
Yeah.
So the footage goes viral. Like I said, everybody online jumps in and has their own, of course, with the backstory and history of this hotel. It's a ghost. There's a demon chasing. I mean, it's
Ghost Hunters, the special edition. Ghost, whatever is it? What is it called? Ghost Adventures?
Yeah.
Ghost Hunters? Yeah.
They're all of the above. Yeah. So that was, they released the footage to the public on February 13th. February 19th, by February 19th, other guests in the hotel had begun to complain about low water pressure and water. This is so gross. The water having a strange odor and taste. So on February 19th, 2013, a hotel maintenance worker investigating these complaints of like, all right, let me see what's going on. There's big cisterns up on the roof of the hotel where the water's stored. It's old, super old building. And he goes in and starts investigating and makes this discovery in one of the water tanks on the roof of the hotel. and he finds Elisa Lam's nude body floating in a water tank, and her clothes are at the bottom of it. The
No
tank,
way. I never knew.
really,
I never knew any of that. I only knew the footage part, or had
yeah.
heard about the hotel and the elevator footage. I did not know what happened next.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about why that is weird. Aside from the fact that she's in a water tank on the roof, I mean, it's not easy to get to. I'll talk about that, but they had to actually drain the tank, and which they would have had to do anyway, and they had to cut it open to get her out. And it's probably, I think the size of this tank is like 10 feet, or it's close to that, tall. And it's elevated, I think, off of the roof, or there's a ladder that goes up to the top of it, which is about a 10-foot tall ladder where you can go up to the top of it. So it's not like you would have just walked up and it's waist high, and you would have fallen in. So they do an autopsy, of course, and that reveals that there's no evidence of foul play, struggle, or sexual assault. And the LA County Coroner's Office ultimately ruled her death an accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder being a significant contributing factor. Toxicology reports indicated that Lam had likely been under-medicating or had stopped taking her prescribed bipolar medication altogether, which could have led to a psychotic episode. They theorized that in a delusional state, she climbed the fire escape ladder to the roof, entered the tank through its open hatch, and then once she's inside, falls or climbs inside, then she couldn't get out.
And maybe seeing things in the elevator and all that too.
Yeah, but I didn't know that bipolar disorder would do that. I didn't know it could be that severe to make you hallucinate.
Yeah, probably. I don't know either.
I didn't research that. So by this point, though, of course, this is national, if not international. I'm sure it was international news, right? And everybody online is I can understand why people don't accept that right out of the gate, that theory, because of how hard the roof and the water tank on the roof were to get to. There people were saying basically like, look, how did she get to this? The access to the roof is locked. There's a locked door. How would she have gotten through that by herself? How would she have gotten up on the water tank? Yeah, all right. It's a ladder. She could climb up the ladder. But really, was there just an open hole on the top of and why would there be? You would think there'd be some safety measures, is my point. The other thing is the door that she would have had to go through, aside from being locked, has alarms on it. You're not allowed to be on the roof unless it's part of the hotel's thing, right? I mean,
right.
Rooftop bar or whatever. Otherwise, you're not allowed up there for insurance purposes. And a long time ago, when I worked in the film industry in LA, I would have to be on I've been on a lot of the roofs of those tall buildings down there. Why is that funny?
No, it's just you're like an action star.
I wasn't scaling up the side of it. I'm just saying I would,
what were the movies?
Oh, I mean, tons and tons of things. I can't even remember a specific one over the years. So many different commercials or photo shoots, movies, TV shows. But you go on the roof. You have the star that goes out and looks over the city or whatever the stupid shot is. But you have to have a building engineer.
You need access.
You certainly can't just walk around. There are cameras everywhere. So it is unusual to say that she could have gotten there. The only other way, there were 3 fire escapes on the side of the building. You would think maybe someone would have seen her climbing up a fire escape and onto the roof. Just a girl who clearly doesn't look like she's a maintenance worker.
Right.
So it was an unusual, like, how did she do this, or would she really have done this on her own? It's not like she just ended up there or someone found her. You have this other part of this story where she's on video camera in the elevator looking like she's talking to somebody. That's what makes it really, really unusual.
And then she's nude in
Yeah.
the tower thing too, like, that probably happens at the very end, but, like,
Yeah.
that's unusual too.
Yeah. So, it's like, could a maintenance worker, could someone who would have had access to the roof, have been with her? But it was ruled an accidental death. Her parents filed a wrongful death suit against the hotel in September of 2013, but it was later dismissed. And I would think that's probably because, it was probably, it was over liability, and they're saying, look, she wasn't supposed to be up there. That's on her. I understand that, but I also think, well, if she could have gotten up there, so could anyone else, so could a kid. There's no way a person should be able to walk up and climb into a water tank on the roof. So, um,
Very interesting. Yeah, I remember there's a lot of old classic buildings in downtown LA area, and I remember when I was with WWE, there was SummerSlam that was happening at the Staples Center at the time, and they put us up in the hotel where they filmed the original Ghostbusters, and
yeah,
we
yeah,
were in the room, and of course, I looked at someone and said, "Don't cross the streams," because it was the room. It was, and I was a little bit creeped out because the rooms were old, and
yeah,
it was like you were saying with the Cecilia, it's like 100-year-old place, right? And it's an artifact of another time, and not everything holds up. And it felt a little creepy. I had little Ghostbusters in my head,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
There's an energy to those older buildings, which I mean, I love.
Yeah.
I think it just makes it unique, and it's kind of like, I remember, like, years and years ago, I had this friend who lived at that time in an apartment in Hollywood that Marilyn Monroe lived in at one point,
Mm.
before, before she was really famous, or maybe even before she was famous at all. And I went, in this, and it's like, you feel something, when history has happened there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's Elisa Lam. I don't know. I don't know what your feelings are on that, whether it was fully a psychotic break and she just ended up there, or could there be more to it?
I think that's probably it, but it's also like there's a lot of different steps that happened that led her to her ultimate fate that is also just interesting or sad or whatever you want to say beyond just the elevator. Like there's all these other things that happened after we see that footage, right?
Yeah.
And that's sad that she went through all of
Yeah.
that stuff,
Yeah.
to meet the fate that she did.
Yeah. It is a sad story. So that's all we got for this episode. How It All Went South. Hit up the socials at How It All Went South. Go leave a comment, rate, review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks for joining us.